Hello, Stephanie Joy with All Things Social Security. We had a Q&A with a short little clip discussion on a particular topic. So I'm going to attach it for you here. It might be something that you're interested in if you clicked on this header. And following that, we're going to go through it a little bit more. So just wanted to give you the heads up. This is where it started from, and then we'll have the bigger discussion right after. All right, chat with you later. Bye-bye. So you are a representative payee of a minor child who's on, I guess, SSI, right, Eddie? Okay. Eddie says, if I withdraw, I put it on, right? Yep. If I withdraw cash from the monthly account or the dedicated account, so again, this isn't, I believe, an SSI minor child, do I write down an explanation of the expense? Like if you can Zelle it, or I'm just thinking, because then you can have memos and it will come out in your bank statement from your bank, so it's clear. When we claim that we pay cash, who's to say whether we did or we did not? Now, if you got a receipt signed by the recipient, but how much does that actually document too? I mean, anyone could sign anything. You could throw a Mickey Mouse signature on there. Although I don't see them, Eddie, I think we talked about this before. I don't see them coming down hard on parents, because parents are probably the most reliable RPs there is for their children. Do you keep a register? Because if you have it in the account, there should be is there an online register that the bank gives for that dedicated account, Eddie? And if so, do you use a register where you, like, I don't know, I use, what is it? If get a babysitter, caretaker, and pay them cash, should that be in a written agreement? No, but I would keep it documented. I mean, you could, well, you don't have checks. Again. Good afternoon. A quick share here regarding a conversation I just had with someone who the issue came up about an SSI parent. So when I say SSI parent, in this instance, I mean a parent of a child receiving SSI. Let's say it's for autism. The child is now over 22, and a previous SSI application as an adult was denied and not reapplied again. That was before the adult child was 22, and now the adult child is 22. So a couple concerns here I have for the parent and the child. I think the parent, it's can be exhausting and stressful to file, particularly when you're just trying to do probably everything and move the world, to keep things afloat. For yourself and your child in the meantime, right? So if a parent needs to know that if, let's say, at 18, the kid who had been on SSI as a child, say for being on the autism spectrum, and it was severe enough to be considered disabling for a child, which is a slightly different definition, of course, than being disabled as an adult at 18. So if the child is unable to prove on an application for whatever reason that's still disabled as an 18-year-old adult and gets denied, it is very, very important to file again, obviously, not only for the child to get SSI, but if you do prevail and the child is under 22, that will be significantly important for later when the child may be eligible for DAC. Now, we've discussed this in other videos. DAC is disabled adult child, an adult child who has been disabled before the age of 22, and the benefits can become an eligibility, a piece of eligibility once the child's parent who has an SS work history is either collecting retirement, collecting SSD, him or herself, or passes away and therefore creates the survivor aspect. But that child has to have proven that he was disabled before age 22. Now, if, as a parent who has already, not one on an attempt to file for SSI for this adult child when the child became an adult, it is really important that you don't fudge it again, because eventually you're going to run out of time and there will be no window in which to prove he became disabled before age 22. So let's say a parent decides to file again doesn't prevail. Maybe the parent doesn't know what they're doing. Maybe they're not, they're just hoping it's going to organically just happen. That's not the way it works. Because again, child disability is different from adult disability, and for good reason. A lot of adults who had serious problems as children, once they become adults, can do some sort of simple, low stress, uneducated job, So it really takes a lot to prove. My recommendation, short of other details, is to, yes, file again, but make sure you're doing all that homework, all that medical visits to show that he's the level of incapacity that young adult has that would interfere with working a full-time job on a reliable basis, even the most simple kinds. So, because if that pushes forward on an application and does not go full health and get an award, and now that child is over 22 when you get the denial, say from an ALJ or the appeals council, or you don't take it to federal court and get it overturned, that child will never have an opportunity to get DAC, because there's no window under the age of 22 that has not yet been adjudicated to see if he was disabled. So if you give a weak case, you're making a res judicata. It's the law of the case that that child was not disabled under SS rules prior to the age of 22. You don't get a redo. There's no redo on that for that time period. Could the child file for SSI and be under the thumb of SSI the rest of his life? Sure, of course. But is the whole point about DAC is that now you get him off of SSI. He is a DAC recipient receiving what's usually a higher benefit, and he doesn't have all the strictures of SSI. He has some strictures, which you could see them in the other DAC videos, but he doesn't have the resource limit of SSI. He can have $1 million in the bank, and that's not a resource that's going to boot him out like it would be for SSI. He can inherit money from you that he couldn't do if he was on SSI. Really, really important not to blow this time period for these, young disabled adults and parents. If they're disabled, it's probably up to you, specifically if it's a mental disability, as opposed to strictly physical, in which case maybe that wouldn't be necessary. But now, if there was a failed application when the child turned 18, and then the parent doesn't do anything due to, exhaustion, probably understandable, but you can't sit down on exhaustion, because it's not as bad as if you do the case and screw it up again. Because like I said, you might end up taking away DAC opportunities from your child forever. But if you've, sat on it for a few years and now the child is over 22, you have one bite at the apple now, one bite. You have another application to file for that SSI, and it would be the window that would be available to prove is the day after that last ALJ decision on the prior failed SSI application when he was over 18 to the time he's 22. It could be a short window, or maybe it's a few years, who knows? But now, of course, you can't go back and take him to all these neurocog people and experts, because those are going to be present day opinions on what he's like now, not on the past. So, you can't follow advice as to best evidence now, because it's all going to be after the fact that he's 22, if he's already past 22. But you do have the opportunity to apply based on whatever you were getting him before, and hopefully it was enough. Yeah. Take heed. I know it's got to be exhausting and stressful and tiring. I'm very biased. I think you should have a professional do it for you. I mean, there's a reason why there are professionals for it. But one way or the other, do not blow it, because that is a window of time and a short window of time in which you can secure him Social Security benefits that he might not ever be able to get, because he's not going to be able to get DAC. So unless he's able to go back to work, and this is important too, a lot of these young people can work part-time, sometimes in a sheltered environment, but nonetheless work part-time under SGA, and they can therefore earn the credits to get their own work history. So they could potentially get off SSI a different way, should they get on SSI, by building those credits. Then they're going to be reevaluated to see if they're still disabled, blah, blah, blah. And then if they are, they get their SSD on their own record. But it might not be as much as what they would have gotten under DAC, because DAC was from an adult parent who worked their whole career not being disabled. And this adult child is working and earning as a disabled person, staying under those limits, or has no choice but to stay under the limits potentially. So there are other avenues that are better than, what I think is better than SSI. I'm biased in that way too. I just think everybody getting their own benefit on their own work record, or that someone else already paid for, like their parent, it's worth its weight in gold. It leaves them a lot more opportunities, I think. Anyway, SSI Parents, just try to pull it up one more time. You've been doing it all these years. It's exhausting. You do it for the love of your child. And this is a way to help put your mind at ease once he gets more of a foundation that will establish DAC later. And that's winning SSI when he's under 22 is showing that he was disabled before age 22. Later on, when he applies for DAC, like I think I alluded to before, when you retire, or God forbid become disabled, or God forbid pass away, they will look at him again and make sure he is still disabled. and all those earnings will come into play. You really should pay, look at the playlist for disabled adult child. It's going to give you a lot of information, including how they can lose their DAC once they've secured it. So you want to make sure you avoid that. Okay. All right. Yes, I got the cold. I'll talk to you guys later. Hello again. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was helpful, if not just a little bit informative. In the event you have a Social Security question you want addressed, please feel free to make a comment below and ask the question, even if nothing to do with this particular video. And just a quick, again, reminder, we have our daily video shares and tips around noon every day of the week. And on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have our live Q&A session where you can come in live and enter your questions in the chat. And we all pretty much have a good time for an hour or two. I look forward to seeing you there, hopefully. And lastly, don't forget about our benefactor memberships. They're very reasonably priced. The first one is very nominal, and you get a few perks, but on a bigger scale, it contributes to us being able to fulfill a mission of assisting certain people with representation that would otherwise not be able to get it. We look forward to continuing to do that, and so far it's working out like the bomb. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Bye-bye now.